Welcome to the BVTV network, coming to you from the UK studios of BizVision. I'm your host, Malcolm Gallagher. This is episode 3 in the BVTV Startup Success Trilogy with serial entrepreneur and author David Muchow. Hello, David.
Hey, Malcolm, how are you?
Well, I'm sad that this is the final one, and I am also sad that I've had to try and squeeze so much that's in your great book, and I should know after being in the business for such a long time. The knowledge that you're imparting is going to help people avoid that thing. That's the mistake, the failure. It's going to help them definitely. But too many people go into it with rose-colored spectacles. I'd rather see the bad side, wouldn't you? And we're in this stage 3 now. Now, I personally think stage 3 is a step that entrepreneurs should include in their planning, but many don't. It's the step of keeping it going. That new baby has to be nurtured, otherwise the first two stages have been wasted. So how does your book guide readers in this important stage?
Well, hopefully you're able to make it to stage 3 because
Yes.
8 out of 10 startups fail. So the purpose of this book is at least to get you to stage 3 and then hopefully to a very profitable exit. But while you're in the teenage years of being a startup, there are some things that you have to do and things that you never should do. And when you're developing your product, let's say you've got your legal work done, you got your company set up, you got your team put together, you have a plan. Now all you have to do is to develop a product or service, right?
Yeah.
And when you do that, you need to take a lean approach, and by lean, I mean create a minimum viable product. Don't worry about all the bells and whistles and so forth, because they're going to be too expensive. They'll cost you more to patent, and you don't even know if the customer wants them or not yet.
Yeah.
So do your market research, talk to 100 people, get in the mind of the potential customer, show your prototype to people, don't sell it, get their feedback. If you were General Motors and CEO of General Motors, what you'd be worried about in the middle of the night, well, gee, am I going to have an engineering failure on the door lock that's going to cost a big recall? That's not what you're doing as an entrepreneur with a startup. You're only trying to learn. You're trying to learn what the market wants. All you have is a hypothesis of what your product or service should be and who your customer might be. And you really don't know. You think you know, but trust me, you don't know. And I've worked with hundreds of companies, and so often they'll start out and say, I've got this product that does X. And I'll ask them a question. I'll say, how do you know it's a product? How do you know it's not a service? How do you know it's not both? So be humble, listen, do your market research. The next thing to look out for is watch out with those tough personnel issues. The 2 toughest areas in a business I've found are raising money and not making personnel mistakes. You can get so tied up with everything drinking out of a fire hose in your business because you've got legal issues and product issues and accounting issues, and you're trying to raise money. You forget about people, and people are what makes it work. If you don't pay attention to them, they're going to get mad. You might say one wrong word, like, let me give you a typical conversation, Malcolm. You're on the elevator with an employee, and the employee says, I understand you haven't been able to pay me much for the past year while we're developing this company, but, I'm thinking about leaving. And then you mistakenly say, oh, don't worry, I'll take care of you. As any lawyer would know, that's looking a lot like a promise.
Yeah.
And then when your company's worth $10 million, the lawyer for that employee shows up at your doorstep, says, hey, we did 30% of the work getting your company started, so we want 30% of your 10 million. So treat your employees with great care. Be careful.
Yeah. And also, at the same time, the world has changed a lot, hasn't it? And, you have to have emotional intelligence as an entrepreneurial leader, don't you? rather than
Well,
technical skills.
well, you do, and the flip side of that, Malcolm, is you've got to maintain your life balance
Mm,
with your family, your significant others, and so forth. You're running 120% on your company. So in the last chapter of the book, I talk about management Zen, which is the capability of not losing that life balance.
mm,
And by understanding that you can only do what you can do, and you got to let the rest of it just flow right over you and not be discouraged, because you will have a lot of very big speed bumps. It's
yeah.
like, climbing Gibraltar here. It's not going to be just one hop and you're there.
Mm.
So you have to really stay calm, as they'll say in England, and keep that life balance.
Yeah, keep calm, and yes, I know exactly. My friend actually found that poster that it's around the world now. Keep calm and carry on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and what he didn't do, by the way, is keep the intellectual property of it. And
Well,
so it's
yeah, that can be a fatal error. There are lots of fatal errors, but that's a really big hole in the ground. Yeah.
a big hole in his pocket too. Well, listen, David, there was one thing I learned a number of years ago from American Guru, who said about starting a business. Now, putting aside any risks to customers, it says you don't have to get it right. You just have to get it going. Do you believe in that?
Well said. Yeah. And ideally, you wouldn't have to go out and borrow money and give away equity and do all that. If you're selling t-shirts, you may well be able to get out there and self-finance.
Yeah.
If you've got something good, occasionally people do show up at your doorstep and ask for it without having to spend a lot of money on marketing and so forth.
Mm.
So yes, that's certainly possible. That's your first option, is not to give away too much equity, because equity is very important stuff.
Yeah, yeah. He continued that conversation by saying, get it going because the market will help you improve it, provided you listen to the market. And I often feel that's something that entrepreneurs don't do. They don't listen to the market enough because they're so convinced they're right.
Well, failure is a ideal way for you to start to listen. And if you run down one path, make sure you've got milestones on what you're trying to do and how long you're going to try to push that thing up the hill, right?
Mm.
And that when you have a good team and you have experienced people on your board of directors and so forth, they can help you from the tendency of every entrepreneur I've ever met, who's a pretty tough individual. They're never going to give up. They're going to persevere. They're going to make it happen. And at some point that becomes ridiculous, and you need to know when to stop, when to hold them, when to fold them.
Mm.
And you're exactly right.
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks, David. Now let's give viewers and listeners details of your URL, your website, which obviously viewers you can see on the screen behind me. But for listeners, let me spell it out for you. It's all the W's dot David, and you spell the surname Muchow, David Muchow, author.com. David's book is called The 7 Secret Keys to Startup Success, What You Need to Know to Win, and it's available from bookstores and online at Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble. Now, in such a short trilogy, we can only skim the 30 years of great experience of David, but I trust it's given you the urge to get his superb book. I should know, I've been in the round the game for a while. This is a book that is different and that will help you, and it'll help you know the things that other people don't tell you, by the way. So it will help you dramatically on your startup success journey. And it's a knowledgeable guide too. Thanks, David, for a great trilogy.
Yeah, thank you, Malcolm.